Welcome back to the Sometimes Daily Show. Hope everyone had a good weekend, but before we get into today's show, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who watched Thursday's show. It's over 200 views now, and while that's not amazing numbers compared to other YouTubers, for us, that's massive. So, thank you. I also want to say thank you to the 6 loyal viewers who watched Friday's episode. On to the show. I'm Philip Edwards.
And I'm Michael Palmer. Michael Ansell, one of the driving forces behind the Rayman franchise and the game director of Beyond Good and Evil, left Ubisoft on the 18th of September, stating he was leaving the gaming industry to work at a wildlife sanctuary.
However, on the 26th of September, the French newspaper Libération released an article that detailed some rather shocking allegations against Mr. Ansell. As the article is in French, we're going to be using Thomas Bedeau's translation.
Liberation shared the accounts of several employees and the troubles they had during Beyond Good and Evil 2's development, and we're going to share with you some of our favourite bits. Quote, "Videos were handmade, rushed, under Michael Ansell's supervision. Everything has been thrown away since then." End quote. So, for anyone who thought all the trailers looked good, sorry, that's all been thrown away now. Quote, "Ganesha City, which he asked us to do with a completely stupid level of detail, we only finished it 3 years later, and we've had to redo it 4 or 5 times. Knowing that we had to do several planets, you can imagine the absurdity of this kind of reasoning." End quote. That sounds like some classic feature creep to me.
Quote, "Michael needs the ideas to be his. He prefers to improvise something of his own rather than listen to the team and look at the structured work we've done at his request." End quote. So a narcissist then. Quote, "He's able to explain to you that you're a genius, that your idea is great, and then he can take you apart in meetings by saying that you're a piece of shit and that your work is worthless and not talk to you for a month." End quote. I'm not going to add anything to that one. That can just exist on its own.
Quote, "When he was speaking to the press, we were taking notes because he was in need of impressing. He would invent tricks and state ideas that became guidelines. And it would concern points on which we would have been stuck on for months, waiting for directions." End quote. This sounds like a failure to communicate with his team. Quote, "Around me, I have seen a good dozen people go on sick leave. Probably more. Meeting people with tears in their eyes, it happens often. It's the first time I've seen that at Ubi." End quote. With Ubisoft's history, I'm going to have to hit X for doubt. The Liberation article also mentions how extra managers were brought in to help limit the amount of people who would have to deal with Ansell directly.
Liberation reached out to Ansell for comment. In his response, he tried desperately to avoid talking about any specific allegations, and would only talk in broad terms about the difficulties the studio faced. Quote, "The suffering is from both sides. Yes, it's hard and there are people who are sad. If you want, we can work the terms. For me, the sadness is maybe more profound. Of course, when someone is in burnout, it's terrible. Of course, when someone stops a project after many years, it's a part of their life that goes away. I don't devalue that. But you have to consider the context of such a creation, its ambition, its complexity." End quote. I don't devalue that. Now watch me immediately devalue it. And, as he asked us to, let's take a moment to consider the context. Considered, it's a fucking video game. I love video games, but no game is worth people burning themselves out to such a point that they cry. Just because you think you're making something special doesn't give you the right to treat other people like shit and berate them. Fuck you, Ansell. Fuck you.
Okay, that's enough out of Philip. Ansell also confirmed that when the allegations against him were originally made, he got a lovely visit from Yves Guillemot, CEO of Ubisoft, letting him know about them. That doesn't sound suspicious at all. It was also reported that in mid-August, when the situation was brought up to Yves, he was quoted as saying that Ansell's position at the company was non-negotiable, quote-unquote. This is starting to sound like Yves was trying to protect a friend of 30 plus years, but the CEO of Ubisoft would never put his friends above the well-being of his employees, would he?
Have you ever watched our channel? That's pretty much all we ever talk about.
Ansell did make an Instagram post responding to the allegations, and it was mostly nonsense. He started by saying, quote, "Fake news, take a few people with rage and jealousy and let them speak in the name of hundreds," end quote. We're not going to cover everything he says in his post. I highly encourage you to go and read through his bullshit yourself. We are going to cover just one bit. In response to the allegation of toxic management, he said, quote, "I am not managing the team. I bring vision and producers and managers decide what to do. When and how? They are powerful people in the making of such a big project, end quote. The only thing we're going to say about this is, he doesn't make decisions. He is the game director. That's literally all he does. That's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, hit that like and subscribe button and share it with a friend. Also, remember to come back tomorrow for another show, because if you don't, then I'm going to swap all the meat in your house to vegan meat. That way, the next time you eat bacon and you get the taste of beans, you'll know you should have watched the Sometimes Daily show. So, see you tomorrow.